To demonstrate the server monitoring capabilities, I've created two new VMs on DigitalOcean, called them New Relic 1 and 2, and also configured them to send the data, essentially the system metric data, back to New Relic. And we could click on one of the VMs and get more detailed information about essentially the CPU utilization and the I/O that's happening, both disk and network. For instance, as you can see, we displayed the CPU usage as a percentage from 0 to 100, and essentially a load factor, and also the amount of physical memory that's being used historically, the disk utilization, and the network, essentially the packets going in and out of the system. Another important metric that's also being collected is essentially information about the processes that are running on the machine. For instance, as you can see, it shows us the top 5 memory consumers, and if you look at this particular metric, a particular process, this is the daemon that is collecting the data and sending it back to the servers. As it turns out, the CPU usage is pretty less, and so is the memory usage. So it looks like the memory footprint of the daemon that is collecting and sending out the data is pretty small. Similarly, we can get more detailed information, essentially historic information, about the network and the disks that are there on the machines. For instance, we could get the number of packets sent out, essentially the number of packets dropped, and other useful metrics like this. Similarly, on the disk side, we could get the number of IOPS and essentially the storage that's being used, amount of available space, etc. Just give it a moment to load. Yeah, the IO rate, the IOPS per second, etc. I'll just quickly guide you through the process of creating a new VM and essentially configuring it to send back data to a New Relic dashboard. To do that, I'm just going to create a new VM on DigitalOcean. Let me just go ahead and do that. Let's just pick Ubuntu, and yeah, any size should work. And we'll just call this test machine. Create. And let's just go back and add another VM to the list of machines that are being monitored. Here we select the platform that we're running on, in this case Ubuntu. The monitoring service is provided on a whole bunch of different OSs, including Red Hat, CentOS, Windows, etc. In our case, we're going to pick Ubuntu, and it displays a list of instructions that will have to essentially run on a VM to set up monitoring capabilities. Now that the VM is created, I'm just going to log into the machine. And set up we're just adding a new repository to our Linux machine that we just created, and here we're installing the sysmon d daemon, which is essentially the daemon process that runs in the background and keeps collecting metrics that it later sends to essentially the New Relic cloud. This step lets us configure the daemon by setting a unique license key, which lets the service uniquely identify. And finally, we just run an initd script to start the daemon. As you can see, yeah, that's about it. And this is the set. This is all the steps that are needed to set the VM up to essentially collect the data and send it back to this cloud. Now we're just going to go back to our server dashboard and see if, this usually takes a couple of minutes. We're going to see if the data populates. As you can see, the new machine called test machine that we just configured has showed up on the list of servers. Yeah, this takes a couple of minutes for the data to populate, and yeah, as you can see, some of the data has already showed up. Like the CPU, the type of OS it's running, etc. While the time series data has not been loaded yet. This usually takes a couple of minutes, and yeah, we'll just pause the video for a while and come back in a while and show you the results of this. As you can see, after a couple of minutes, the time series data has started to come in as well. Essentially, you can notice the load and the memory usage and the disk utilization, network I/O ever since the VM has been created just a couple of minutes ago. The data is essentially collected by the daemon and sent in every minute, and we see the data being updated on a minute by minute basis, although the resolution is much finer than 1 minute. And that's about it on the server side of things.